We've been through a lot of material in the previous sections, so I'd like to take this time to just do a summary of what we've talked about. We've talked about the way to manipulate people, and the way manipulators and propagandists manipulate people on a permanent self-reinforcing basis is to change their world model. And that is by drip feeding information into that world model so it distorts the frame of reference against which everything is measured. It's not done on a just keep saying something is wrong when somebody else says it's right. What they're trying to do is create a change in the programming of the world model so that your world model by default always distrusts this or always believes that, irrespective of the evidence coming in. And that's a really important differentiator against the idea that if you just told something enough times it will work. It doesn't work that way. It has to go deeper. It has to go into that world model so that every politician is crooked and every banker is out for themselves and every lawyer just wants to sue everybody and nobody's got any sense of social justice. It's trying to in some way create those sort of completely skewed aspects in your world model. The world model against which you reference everything is distorted. That's the only way propaganda manipulation work on a permanent basis. We've talked about the tools to do that. We've talked about anchors. Anchors are ways to label people and anchor them with something. So a certain person is a liar, certain person is a cheat, certain person is always trustworthy, certain person always lies, certain person never lies, truthful John, lying Sue, crooked this person, honest that person. We're always using those anchors, and you'll hear the people or person doing it always attaching that anchor when they mention that person's name. And that is these anchors that help change the underlying world model. Now, links are when the anchors link to a trigger emotion or link to another anchor. So, for instance, if the anchor is untrustworthy, you can create a link by creating association between them and somebody else who's also got an anchor of untrustworthy. So each time you refer to the person with the anchor of untrustworthy Fred, you can say was with untrustworthy Bill, so that or somebody that's already perceived to be untrustworthy, so that it creates links. It also creates links to triggers, or what we call trigger emotions. So if somebody has a fear of being lied to, by presenting them with somebody or a group where you've created anchors and links about lying or manipulation, that will trigger the trigger emotion, and that even more reinforces and deepens this changing of the world model, this polymorphic process of these people all lie, these people will always lie to me, these people will manipulate me, they'll always try to manipulate me, so that even when the propaganda and the manipulation is stopped, because the world model is skewed, there's always going to be that biased approach. We've talked about information, how information is filtered and twisted to act as quote unquote proof. Confirmation bias. In other words, if somebody is a very great considerable doubts about something or has great belief in something, the way that confirmation bias works is you only feed them bits of information that would seek to confirm that bias that you've implanted in their world model. If people come along, that's a filtering process. If people then come along and say, well, what about all this 90% of information that disagrees with it, the way you diffuse that is with what's called context switching. So where the person presents the 90% of information that allegedly disproves your theory, you apply context switching and say, no, actually the reason they did that is to be deceptive. So you then use their own information against them by switching the context to make it seem sinister or make it seem very positive when it's actually could be construed as quite sinister. So you're switching the context to suit your cause. And then we've talked about social conformity and compliance, how when manipulating social groups, we have a flywheel effect, because the pressures of social conformity and compliance are great. So the tendency to want to agree with the group, the tendency to feel a sense of belonging with the group, can create this situation where the group will do the manipulation for you. If you convince most of them, they will recruit the others. What I call the flywheel effect. It does your work for you. We've talked about polarization, the extremes of people are absolutely untrustworthy or absolutely trustworthy, the sort of angels and demons, the us and them, the need to discredit calm, reasonable, objective people, because the aim of manipulation and propaganda is to get people emotionally triggered, because people who are emotionally triggered cannot be objective. And that is how all of these tools are meant to work together, to play on people's world model, to link it into deep emotional triggers, and then to press the different buttons to change their view of the world and to create whatever outcome you wish, either their allegiance to you or their allegiance to somebody else, or to remove their allegiance to a group or person, all in the interests of controlling them, whether that be in a group of friends, whether that be in a workplace, whether that be in local politics, or even nation state arguing between themselves.